Hi, this is American jazz saxophonist, formerly with the jazz fusion band the Rippingtons, and one of the founding members of the Sax Pack, Jeff Kashiwa from Seattle, Washington. And you're watching me on Jazz Across the Pond with the Jazz Cat and Mr. G. I hope you enjoy.
Well, our followers are going to be enamored by that. What
Uh,
an amazing, amazing video. It's The Night is Young. Certainly here in the UK, yeah, the night's going in a little bit there. It's different time zones to our guest and my fellow colleague. Our very special guest on this week's show is a Seattle native who became known as one of the most compelling young saxophone players in contemporary jazz during the first year with the Rippingtons back in 1989.
Wow.
Our very special guest has performed hundreds of shows all over the world and appeared on many of the Rippingtons' classic recordings. Our guest has an incredible catalogue of solo albums and is also a founder of the Sax Pack, a trio of saxophone headliners. Ladies and gentlemen, Jazz Across the Pond, Jazz Interviews Reimagined is proud, is honored to invite the very talented and the much in demand Mr. Jeff Kashiwa. Hi there.
Hello, gentlemen. Pleasure to be with you.
It's great to have I've actually had the pleasure of interviewing you on my radio show, Jazz Moves, so it's great to finally have a chat with you and see you in person, sir.
Yes. Always nice to be seen. I just literally, we stayed in good communication. I was literally returning from a trip on the East Coast, and I just walked in my studio. So here we are.
We're going to elaborate on. I know Kevin's very keen to talk about that. My word, are you a jet set? You are all over the place, and we are so pleased that you've taken time out after a hectic schedule to sit down and join us. So thank you, sir.
My pleasure.
Right, okay, let's snap to it. We've got so much. Our researchers have worked overtime this week. Jeff Kashiwa was born in 1963 in Kentucky and was moved to Seattle, Washington as a young child. You credit your public school music program as inspiring your interest in music, along with your late father, who sadly died in 1992. Your dad was a fan of jazz music, especially Benny Goodman and Glenn Miller.
Absolutely, yeah.
Jeff, can you tell more about your childhood, your early days, and your introduction? When can you remember back when you first started hearing jazz and you went, this is it, this is what I love?
Yeah, in the household, it was a big deal. It was a big family outing. We bought a console system, like a stereo, like an LP player, and when you opened up the drawers, it had an 8-track player in there. So my parents started. My mom liked like John Denver and the Carpenters and Fifth Dimension, like really beautiful music, very melodic pop music. And my dad swung more towards the Glenn Miller, Benny Goodman stuff. So we had just a handful. And I would listen to it, but I really got into the Spinners back then. Could It Be On Fall in Love? It's one of those things where when you have a favorite song on the 8-track tape player, and you have to listen to it, and then you have to fast forward, but you can't go to it again. You have to wait 20 minutes for it to come around again. I remember waiting, I like the other songs, but I'm waiting for my favorite song. That kind of impatient thing, but I really got hooked at that time. Spent a lot of time in front of that old clunky console. But my sister, I have to credit her a lot. She was very generous and would let me listen to her albums. And this guy named George Benson, it's like, what is this? This is the best thing I've ever heard.
So an older sister.
Yeah, This Masquerades, like, oh my goodness. Yeah. And my cousin Peter from Hawaii, who was going to college here in Seattle, after he was done, he graduated, and he said, Jeff, you can have all of my LPs. He gave them to me because he was flying back. He didn't want to flying back to Hawaii. And this is a seminal moment for me. I'm thumbing through it. It was Bob James. It was Earl Klugh. It was, the best of the best, quite frankly.
Grover Washington probably was in there.
Grover Washington, Live at the Bijou. Thank you for reminding me. And that's the one I really gravitated. Yeah, Live at the Bijou, which sadly is. But it really molded me. That's like, I want to live in this music.
Well, it's interesting. I'm just jumping before Kevin asks a question. My useless pieces of information in my mind, because you mentioned the Carpenters, because of course they did a version of This Masquerade Is Over, and of course George Benson, and you listen to the two of them, and that fabulous. I love the lyrics of that song, but the George Benson's version is just exquisite, and I think there's a 7-minute version of it, and it's just absolutely mind blowing.
It's little do I know, it's like this music is great, and as far as I'm concerned, I still pay homage to that era of music. I still hold it in the highest regard.
Kevin.
It's amazing the number of people we've interviewed, Jeff, that have said the same thing. The music, has gone so far as just maybe it wasn't, the actual genesis for their profession, but it had a profound effect. Well, first of all, it's good to see you.
See you.
When you began showing an aptitude for music during your early school days, your dad gave you, and I take umbrage with this description, but I'm going to use it anyway, your dad gave you an old silver clarinet.
Yes.
Now, I'm classically trained. You,
It's
you
right
still
behind
have
me.
it?
It's lying. It's lying. You can't really see it. It's lying on top of that cabinet right behind me, right across. Look at that. There you go.
I
There you
am
go.
classically trained on clarinet and bassoon.
Excellent.
And even though we are woodwind brothers, I take umbrage with anybody that would say an old silver clarinet. But nevertheless, as a child, I could see why you didn't fully appreciate what you had. Still have it though, which is cool. But I remember you had said somewhere in one of your interviews that you went to school and then you saw this row of saxophones at school and you knew you'd found the instrument for you. So you wind up switching instruments, and over the years you became very proficient on saxophone. You began working in small gigs as you grew older, which quickly drove your ambition to join a band. After searching extensively for a local band without success, you approach a percussionist named Steve Bailey of the Rippingtons.
Bass player. Yeah.
Bass player, thank you.
Yeah.
Bass player. And you encouraged him, and I believe actually paid him to do gigs with you.
Yeah, I
Is that
hired him.
correct?
I hired him. Yeah. That's the best way. The best way to get to know someone is like, we play together. He's a very good musician, but also just hanging out on the breaks, talking.
Yeah. Exactly. Well, the amazing thing is that partnership with Steve provided the springboard you needed to secure an audition with the Rippingtons, one of the genre's most successful bands, still are, when their legendary sax player, Brandon Fields, left the group. Now, prior to your audition, and this is what I'm fascinated about, you learned every song in the group's library, allowing you to instantly step up and perform all of the songs effortlessly during the audition. And then the rest is history. So, Jeff, what life lessons did you learn early on in your life that prepared you for that moment that changed your life with an opportunity when it became available to you, you were able to take advantage of it?
Yeah, it's the age-old thing of preparation. I really wanted some kind of gig, and there were a couple things that happened that just kind of fell through. When I was back at Berkeley, I heard, hey, the Pointer Sisters might need a horn section. You get all excited, and it just falls. It doesn't happen. A lot of that stuff was going on, but you keep on trying because you love music. And this, I hired Steve. I met him. I don't know where I met him. So on some other gig maybe, but anyway, I hired him and we talked a lot and I bugged him. I said, is Brandon really leaving? And if so, is there going to be an audition? And if so, what should I learn? And Steve was really nice with me. He goes, okay, we always play Tourist in Paradise. So start with that one.
Yeah.
At that time, it was only Moonlighting, Kilimanjaro, and Tourist in Paradise, their third album.
Right.
Yeah. And you have
and some of their best albums at that.
I think so too.
Yeah.
I was a fan of the group. I loved Kenny G's performance on that Moonlighting. Yeah. He did great. But anyway, it just I started memorizing that one song, and I would get back. Yeah, there it is. Get back to him the next week and say, "Okay, I memorized it." And any word? And he said, "No. Why don't you learn these two other songs, Dream of the Sirens?" And he just spoon feed me a little laundry list of things to learn. And a year went by, and this is me literally calling him every 2 or 3 weeks to bug him. It's a lot of phone calls, but within a year, I definitely memorized like all 3 albums. And then finally, it was like the scene from Flashdance when she gets the call. Russ, one day in June, I remember it very clearly. Like, hey Jeff, this is Russ Freeman. Can you come up to at the time he was living in Burbank. Can you come to my studio in Burbank and let me hear you play? Like, yes. So that was it.
Well, again, it's one of those stories where if you always wait for a break, it's not going to happen. You have to make it happen.
Yeah. You have to make it happen, and you have to prepare yourself.
That's Absolutely. It. So when the clock strikes, you're ready to roll.
I teach now, and I tell the students all the time, this story is not about me being such an awesome saxophone player. Not at all. Matter of fact, just the opposite. It's I wanted it so bad, I really prepared, and so that I wouldn't be unprepared should they call.
Yeah.
And I was not, and am not, and never will be the best saxophone player in LA, but I was absolutely the most prepared. That I can say.
Well, it's funny because a few months ago we interviewed Jessie J from California and that, and she was saying with Paul Brown it took her 2 years of perseverance, and she kept hassling him and sending him tapes, and eventually went, all right, and he listened to it, and they did an album. So
and Lisa Adio, Roger, remember she said the same thing. She just hounded people until she finally got an opportunity.
Absolutely, yeah. It seems to be recurring on that. Anyway, after your decade-long tenure with the Rippingtons, your instincts led you to move to more dynamic endeavors through your solo career. It surprised many of the Rippington fans when you left. They were like, no, can't believe this. It's like somebody, it's part of the family's leaving. What's happened here and that? Who's going to replace them and that? So it was a bold move. But what was the catalyst behind that? What made you take that? Because you got the security, working with the Rippingtons, a successful band, touring, new albums coming out. What was the catalyst? Do you eventually go, I'm going to take the bold move and go solo?
Yeah, it's interesting, but people don't know. I've addressed this before. What people don't know is I never intended to stay with the Rippingtons. I wanted it. I really enjoyed it. But soon after, my original idea was to be like the Bob Janes and the David Sanborn, be the artist, be the solo artist. That was my initial mission statement. And of course, the Rippingtons is a wonderful vehicle for that. But it's almost reverse. It's almost like I was only planning on doing it for a few years, but I stayed for 10, because it was fun. We were having so much fun. And eventually I thought, okay, if I don't get off the bus now, I'm never going to get off.
Yeah.
So.
But what a great learning experience too. I mean, Russ Freeman, what a mentor to have. I mean,
I will say honestly, he didn't. It's not as if he sat me down and said, "Jeff, let me show you how to write." I just watched him, and he is. I can attest, he's a genius. His mind works in a certain kind of way that whatever comes out is gorgeous when he writes music.
Well, we've just touched very, very briefly talking about your solo. We've spoken about the Rippingtons, right? We're going to put that over there now. We're going to talk about your solo career, but momentarily we're going to break from this interview. We've still got so much to go through. We're going to play a track off an album that came out last year. It's a stunning album. It's called Sunrise, and I love the fact, I know Kevin himself, he's going to allude to it in a minute, the way that it goes from one and it goes right through the entire day and eventually finishing off with the sunset. Very clever idea. We're going to play a track called Slow Turn from that album, and we'll come straight back to this interview because we've still got so much to go. Ladies and gentlemen, just across the pond, we got the man himself there from Seattle, Washington, Mr. Jeff Kashiwa. Have a listen to this. This is lovely Sunrise, and this is Slow Turn. Back with you in a moment.
Welcome back to Jazz Across the Pond, Jazz Interviews Reimagined with the Jazz Cat and Mr. G. We've been listening to Slow Turn from Mr. Jeff Kashiwa's incredible 2021 project, Sunrise, featuring Jeff's gifted bandmates from the Coastal Access Band and 3 very special guest artists, Mr. Marc Antoine on acoustic guitar, Philip Sace on piano vibes and marimba, and Tom Schumann on piano. Now, Jeff, we were talking about your projects. Roger and I were talking about your projects.
Mm-hmm.
And we have pretty much come to an agreement that we think Sunrise is the best project of your career thus far.
Oh, thank you. Thank you.
The production quality of it is impressive. Just so our viewers are aware, Sunrise features 17 musicians playing 20 instruments across 10 songs, all composed, arranged, and produced by Jeff, who performs on sax, clarinet, bass clarinet, flute, and iwi. The project also includes electric guitar, bass guitar, keys, percussion, drums, oboe, double reed. I was a bassoon player as well, so gotta give a shout out to the double reed player. Trumpet,
Yes.
flugelhorn, trombone, French horn, and vocals. And it's kind of cool because the song that we just played, Slow Turn, features the iwi, and it's just a great song.
Slow Turn is more of no. Slow Turn is there are flute parts at the bridge, alto flute parts, and it features a soprano as the main voice.
Ah, okay,
Yeah.
cool.
Yeah, and I think I might have doubled some of the flutes with a little bit of iwi. Maybe that's what you're referring to, but I can't really remember. But
Well, the amazing thing is being able to use the iwi, and it just rounds out everything. It's pretty amazing.
the iwi is very interesting. I
was just going to say, our followers are going to be going, what's
an
iwi? What's he talking
iwi?
about? So we're now going to put you on the spot, Kev, and we're going to say, would you explain to our followers what an iwi is, please, sir?
Yeah, so iwi is an acronym, even says it on the side, electric wind instrument. And this is the model called 4000. It's not the latest model, it's the one before the latest model. And I've been playing this one. I've got 2 others in the corner. This model for as soon as it came out, so maybe more than 10 years, I think. And I really love it. And it's really served me well. And let's see.
Still a woodwind, has a reed.
Now I'm into this. This is new. It is called the NURAD, N-U-R-A-D, NURAD wind synth. And it is essentially the same concept as the iwi in that it's a wind-driven synthesizer, but for lack of a better term, the brain, the part that interprets the wind, has better electronics. Where the iwi had expression from maybe this big, this has much more expression. They can do more with the sound. So let me just play. I should be wearing a neck strap, but I'll just kind of balance it here. Yeah, I was trying
Give us some bass notes. Give us a couple of bass notes, Jeff.
It's really quite
great.
I'll get it.
Amazing. That's amazing.
I gotta say, it's not physically taxing to play because it's easier. It's more close. It's akin to flute, actually. The same kind of sensibilities that you might have on flute, and there are no side keys like on a saxophone, so it's more like the flute, really. But it is very relaxing to play. I put my headphones on and get lost. And right now I'm triggering my computer, the same one I'm talking to you with. But I just got done with a concert where I used my iPhone and used an app on my iPhone, and that's what was going out to the audience.
That's amazing. That's amazing. Well, let me go ahead and pick up where we left off. Now, so when you left the Rippingtons in 1999, you mentioned you had left to focus on your band Coastal Access, who performs with you, obviously, on your project Sunrise. So that our viewers appreciate the talent of your bandmates, allow me just to run through it real quick, if I might. So you've got Melvin Lee Davis on bass. He's played with Chaka Khan, Prince, Lee Ritenour, Jonathan Butler, and Larry Carlton. A few names I think all of our viewers are familiar with.
Yeah.
Alan Hines on guitar has performed with Hiroshima, Bobby Caldwell, Dan Siegel, Roberta Flack, The Crusaders, and Randy Crawford. Dave Hooper on drums has played with Dave Cause, Sheryl Crow, James Ingram, and the Rippingtons. Dave Kochanski on keys has recorded with Norman Brown, Everett Harp, Mark Antoine, Brenda Russell, and the Rippingtons. And then Mark Ellis Stevens, I think you go all the way back to college with him.
I do.
He's another keys player. He's played with Chaka Khan, Alanis Morissette, Diana Ross, James Ingram, and George Duke. So not only do you guys have a great working relationship, but you become close friends in the process. So my quick question would be, how did your investment that you made in your band 23 years ago, what kind of dividends has that paid out, not only for your career, but also for your bandmates' individual careers as well?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if I helped their careers. They are already stellar musicians. The whole thing about my group came about that we were all sidemen in other groups. Like I was out with the Rippingtons, and you just mentioned the whole litany of other artists that these folks have played with. And so I'd say, hey, are you guys free next Saturday? Or whatever, you know, like, yeah, I think I am, you know, and we get together and play our music, and it just became a thing, and the chemistry is so good. And what's interesting about all these LA players, they all live in LA, is I asked them, I said, do you guys play together one without me? Like, do you, with, you know, another configuration? They really don't, not the combination of them. So, and I specifically chose them because they each have wonderful musical skills, great musicianship, and a good chemistry, which is really important.
Before I ask the next question, I was just thinking to myself, you were saying about your concert and how you took your iPhone and the whole thing. It was only 10 minutes ago in our conversation, you were talking about when you had an 8-track and you were shoving it in the machine and you know. Technology has just gone absolutely, it's wonderful. Let's embrace it. Anyway, talk about embracing things. In 2004, you founded the Sax Pack, a trio of great saxophone headliners featuring yourself, Steve Cole, and Kim Waters. The Sax Pack has released 3 CDs, to which I've got all 3 here. They are brilliant. I feature them very frequently on my show, as I know Kevin does on his show. You've charmed audience with your Rat Pack style repertoire and tours across the United States and abroad. Jeff, when did you come up with the idea of the Sax Pack? And how did you come together and get this trio? Because there's some amazing musicians. What instigated those 2 great gentlemen to join you?
Yeah, it started with a joke. You know Miles Gilderdale from Twistigakame. I was on the road with them. I was on the road with them doing their art CD, 2000 something, early 2000s, and we were touring. And we were in San Diego, in backstage area of San Diego Humphreys, and watching television before we went on. And it was the HBO Rat Pack remake. And I turned to Miles. I said, that is so cool. I want to do that. Like where it's a party behind stage, but you bring the party on stage for the audience, you know, invite them to the party. And he just, of course, Miles is like, that's it, the Sax Pack. And I looked at him, I said, thank you. I'm going to trademark that. And I did. I trademarked the name and bought the
your Twitter address too.
Yeah, and bought the the website thing, and then I said so the concept came first, and I thought, well, the concept of the Rat Pack is camaraderie. That's what it is. Both put down to one word, camaraderie, and chemistry too, but camaraderie. And I thought, who do I have connection with? Who have I played with recently that I just ended up hanging out with at a bar and having fun? And those are the 2 first names, Steve Cole and Kim Waters. We never hung out together. I would hang out with Steve at a gig, and maybe I'd see Kim at another gig. Thought this could work. So I called them up and I said, would you guys be willing to do one gig where we just do a trio? And they both agreed to it. And in the early days, we had no group material, so I would do my segment of the show, and Steve would do his. But to make it not separated, so separated like that, so siloed, right? I said we should accompany each other on each other's tunes. So I set about writing out everyone's harmony parts, so that I could play Steve's part and Kim could play my harmony, and et cetera, et cetera. And I think that's what's interesting.
Yeah, and the 3 albums are stunning. If you're a jazz fan out there, add these to your repertoire because they are all incredible albums. We love playing them.
Thank you.
Yeah, 3 distinct voices, and it's just amazing the sound that you guys were able to put together on your project. So very, very impressed with the Sax Pack. All right, Jeff, so you expanded your career by taking on the responsibilities as a music educator. I wanted to ask you about that. You're now in your, I believe it's your 12th year as both an instrumental ensemble instructor and a music technology instructor at Shoreline Community College there in Seattle, Washington. And you're also the chairman of the music department. So Roger and I both salute you for furthering the education of young musicians and preparing them to effectively pursue their musical careers. So Jeff, my question is, how has the Department of Music at Shoreline evolved over the last 12 years to remain relevant in the ever-changing music and entertainment industry?
That's an excellent question. I feel like I'm at a board meeting right now because that is the subject that we talk about with our advisory board is how do we stay relevant? How do we stay relevant? And
well, I didn't want to tell you that the next, well, never mind.
you could be our guest speaker.
I may have let the jazz cat out of the bag. I don't know.
But I would say first of all, music is a passion, and because it is a passion, music technology by proximity is a passion. I love the EWI and all the gadgets that go with it. It just fascinates me. Recording music, everything. So to stay relevant, I'm constantly researching, as all musicians do. What's the latest fill in the blank? What's the latest version of Pro Tools, Logic, Live, etc. And try to stay current that way. And also talk to industry professionals to say, when our graduates leave our college, what would you like them to know? That's what the advisory board is about. These are working professionals that own studios, that own theaters, etc. What do you need our people to know? And we're going to aim at our students that direction.
Brilliant. Well,
yeah.
Amazing stuff. Okay, so there, Ed, you attended the Berklee College of Music in 1981 to 1983, where you developed an interest in straight-ahead jazz. And as a student, you were selected as a second chair alto saxophone for the Disney's All-American College Band. Oh, wow. You received your bachelor's degree in March of 1983. So from the early days, the Rippingtons, the Sax Pack, your own band, to your fabulous solo career, what's next for you then?
I think rinse and repeat. I want to do, I'm just now starting to work on a new album. And just, I sit at this piano here, there, behind me. And because in front of me, I have an electronic keyboard, that goes into Logic that I can sit here. I teach harmony at the college, so that's why I have the above head camera. I call it the bald spot camera. And then I'm able to talk about harmony and et cetera, et cetera. But the thing about playing an actual piano is you come from a different place because you're not getting all techie and you're not looking for the perfect sample and this and that and the other, not yet at least. So the initial stages of songwriting, I like to go old school. That's how I wrote the music for the past CD. Is old school, sitting at a piano. And it seems to be a little more organic. And then when I get my ideas flowing, then I come over here.
Yeah. Well, I know Kevin and myself, we were chatting last night. We were going through our before we joined yourself. And I think Kevin worked out something like 90% of your music from your amazing back catalogue of albums and that are all your own compositions, your own music. You don't tend to do cover of songs and that. You're all your
Once
own.
in a while, yeah. Once in a while we do, but yeah, it's an outlet, it's an expression. I've spent my whole life being, with the Rippingtons being a sideman, playing Russ's beautiful music, and the solo career was the catalyst for me to express my compositions. So that was it gives me a format to do that. And plus, I really enjoy composing and arranging as much as playing. It's their two halves of the same thing, but I enjoy them both.
But I know that previous artists, we've asked them, what is their preference, live, performing, composing, or rest of it. And it's interesting hearing the different artists. We'll ask you the same question. But before we do, I must say, because I know our followers always like to see what kind of shirts that Kevin and myself are wearing. I must say, I do like your shirt on Peace of Mind. I think that's
thank
quite a
you.
nice shirt. You must give me a tailored dress.
I still have that shirt. When COVID started, I thought to myself, I'm gonna get in the gym and lose 5 pounds, right? So I'm happy to tell you, gentlemen, that now I only have 15 left to go.
Well, those old shirts you want to be able to get back into, so I don't blame you. Yeah, the overhead camera that I have is not the ball spot camera; it's the big ball spot camera.
I see.
But one of the things I wanted to ask you, though, Jeff, was that we've talked to a lot of people about because you are a prolific composer. We've asked a lot of people about what is the process. I mean, we've got people that they find inspiration from everything, and they'll hear music in their head, they'll transcribe it, they may record it. How do you go about capturing a theme or a phrase or a chord, or how do you go about what is your composing process?
There's a perfect question. So I'll tell you a story about The Night Is Young, that video we watched earlier.
Yep.
Is I was sitting again at the piano, and I only came up with these chords. So I had a D flat major, and I gotta get my pedal. It slipped away here. Hold on a second. Here we go. So, and this.
Mm-hmm.
So there are 2 major chords of minor third apart. Right?
Yep.
So that's all I had. And so I was doing an interview with Michael Tozzi on the East Coast, and he said, "Jeff, you work on anything new?" And I sat at the piano at the club and played those 2 chords. I said, "Michael, this is all I have for the Sunrise album." And he goes, "Oh, that's very pretty." That was that. Then I forgot what chords they were. and when it came time, it was several months later, it came time to actually start writing the album seriously. I thought, what were those 2 chords I was playing? I was fishing around. I couldn't find. So I went back on Facebook. And I went to his page and I scrolled back through time, months and months.
There you go.
And then just listen to it. And so sometimes you have to transcribe yourself. But these days, what I try to do is I call them seeds, ideas. If I like something, I'll work with it for a bit, and like that, something as simple as that, as nothing as that, 2 chords. But that will be the inspiration for an entire song if you give it time. And the thing about it is, when you hear something, a phrase or something like that, it's you don't know if it's the beginning of the song, because songs don't come to you from left to right. They come to you as an archaeologist would find a pot or something in the sand. You don't know how it's oriented. Right? Is it the bottom? Is it the ending? Is it the beginning? Is it the middle? So that's when the craft of songwriting comes about, is you work with it, see what makes sense. Organic.
And it's your subconscious also takes that information that you've got, and it's amazing what our brains do while we sleep. But it'll take all these things, it'll process it, and then you wake up the next morning. It's like those eureka moments where you've come up with something to change it. So it's just amazing. We've had people that they write stuff down. People have played music, recorded it. People have put it on little pieces of paper. They go through these pieces of paper to find all these thoughts. So, but I was just curious as to how you went about doing that.
Yeah, there's another song I wrote called Blue Jeans, and all I had was just the bass line. That's it. And I stole it. Yeah, I stole it from that. I stole it from that, and I also stole it from David Bowie. I heard. I was in college. I had a black and white television about this big, and David Bowie came on. And they had kind of like a cool groove, and I took a napkin and I transcribed the kick drum rhythm.
Right.
Then I saved it in my important files folder, which is you have to take action, right? And then I lost the folder and left in my garage for many years, That's
crazy.
Like over a decade. And I was cleaning my garage, and the little napkin fell out, a little note from
There you go.
And I came inside here and wrote that song. But it only takes a seed, just a little thing to start it.
And water it every now and then, and it will germinate, and then you never know what it might turn into.
That's right.
Well, we talked about you had flown in earlier this morning. I want to share with our audience a little bit about that. You actually flew in from Milford, Connecticut after taking part in, and I have to do this because our fans will get a
Yes.
kick out of this because I taunt Roger with this. This is the last copy of this. It was on Amazon.
Uh-huh.
Roger tried to buy it, and I bought it like 30 seconds before he did. But anyway, but you were taking part in J. Rose yearly Smooth Jazz for Scholars concert. Now, the ticket sales from the weekend concerts benefit the music education in the Milford area school system. Now, this year, Jay performed on Friday night with Peter White, with Nelson Rangel, and also with Marion Meadows. And then last night, Jay performed with Alex Bugnon, with Marcus Anderson, and Mr. Jeff Kashiwa. So we just want to say that's great stuff, and it's a very worthy cause for the community. We applaud you and your participation in the fundraiser. So I know that was hectic, flying out, flying back, but I'm sure you had a blast, though.
That's the lifestyle, isn't it? But yeah, I really love doing that gig because, first of all, it's just nice to see everyone. Nice to see your friends backstage and all that. And we always get together and play numbers together. As a matter of fact, I flew out early to play with Nelson. He wanted me to play his last number with him. So, and it's a great cause. Jay has done a wonderful job building this event up. And every year he's contributing thousands and thousands to the school district.
That's awesome. That's absolutely awesome.
Yeah.
Well, the only other thing I wanted to do is just to give our viewers a little heads up, because I know we're getting close to the end. We're going to close out our interview tonight with Jeff's. We talked about this before we came on air. One of your classic songs, Hyde Park, from your outstanding year 2000 project, Another Door Opens. But Jeff, I'll say, might close my part out just to say it was a pleasure having you with us today, and we can't wait for your next project. So whatever that seed is, please water it daily, print it when you have to, and let us know when it's ready, and we'll both be promoting it.
Oh, thank you. Appreciate it.
Yeah, let us have a copy. I'll be promoting it on this side of the pond.
Yeah, absolutely.
The curtain is beginning to come down on tonight. An amazing back catalogue of all your CDs, the Sax Pack, and you've also done some great work with Mario Rossi, Scott Wilkie. I've been finding them all and that. That's fabulous stuff. And that. Where can our followers buy your stuff, your material, Jeff?
I'm available at all major outlets: iTunes, Amazon, CD Baby. You can go to my website. If you go to my website, I can autograph it for you and ship it out to you.
Oh, wow, cool.
Wow.
And that web address is
jeffkashiwa.com.
jeffkashiwa.com. Excellent. Well, ladies and gentlemen, Jazz Across the Pond, Jazz Interviews Reimagined. I know Mr. G and myself are just delighted to have had you come and join us. We've been trying to get you for a few months, and eventually we managed to get our diaries and our dates together. So thank you much, sir, for joining us.
I'm glad we did. Pleasure to speak with you guys.
Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, this crazy world we live in, keep smiling, keep safe. From everybody here, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to play it with Hyde Park. Take care. Look after yourself. From the Jazz Cat, Mr. G, and Jeff Kashiwa. Goodbye.